Hey everyone, Dave here from Blue Bears Games with another episode of $20 budget decks. Today's episode, we're going to go in a different direction. We're going to go with Infect, black green Infect to be exact. The interesting thing about Infect is it creates poison counters for your opponent and your opponent's creatures. Uh, Infect usually is a little faster than most because you only need 20 poison counters to kill your opponent. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at how we do that. Remember, this is a budget version of a deck that actually exists in Modern. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the deck and go from there. So, first up, we have Glistener Elf. It's your quintessential one drop. Drop it down in with, it does the job. It's 1/1 Infect. Now remember to read Infect. This creature deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters and to players in the form of poison counters. Remember, 10 poison counters on your opponent is a win. Less than 20 damage, so it's easier to get that in. So this is your one drop. It's essential that if you don't get this in your opening hand, maybe you mulligan down. Try to get it in your opening hand. I went with a couple different versions of Infect creatures. There's only so many creatures that are cheap and have Infect. So I'll go over them real quick and then we'll get back into the deck. So I went with Rot Wolf because it's 3 to cast and it's still 2/2. But it also, whenever a creature dealt damage by Rot Wolf is put in the graveyard, you may draw a card. I've said it in previous episodes that green has an issue with drawing cards, so that's kind of the reason why I put this in here, so it helps you draw cards. Bear, again, just another random Infect creature. Spinebiter, I went with Spinebiter. Mainly because it assigns its combat damage directly, so it doesn't matter if it's blocked or not. So with Infect, it can get its poison counters through. So, and we'll show you how to do that in a minute. Hopefully you don't have to get to that point, but your hope is that the Glistener Elf gets the job done in like 2 or 3 turns. Alright, so the black ones are Flestermite. This is your 2 to cast drop. Infect and Lifelink. The Lifelink doesn't really matter in this one. This was just a cheap 2 to cast 1/1 that had Infect. And Plague Stinger. Plague Stinger was because it's one of the few creatures you will have that has any kind of evasion, and it's also a 2 drop. So the plan is to hopefully, if you don't get the Glistener Elf, you get the Plague Stinger. So that's the creatures. Now, the way that you want to play this deck is you want to play it like a Stompy deck, but with steroids. So, in this deck has a lot of buffs, a lot of combat tricks. So, things like Vines of Vastwood that give your creature +4/+4 when kicked. It's so that on first turn you can play a Glistener Elf, second turn Vines of Vastwood with a kicker, and you're doing 5 damage. That's half the damage you need on second turn. If your opponent doesn't play anything by third turn and you grab another Vines of Vastwood, you pretty much won the game on third turn. How's that for a budget deck? Alright, so, more stuff for buffing. Titanic Growth, cheap, +4/+4. Predator Strike is a +3/+3 trample in case they have chump blockers. You can still get some of the poison counters through. Excuse me. And Groundswell, +2/+2, but if you play a land, +4/+4 for 1. Not bad if you played a land that turn. The quintessential first card ever for buffing in green. Giant Curse. Must have. 4 of them. Play set. Let's go. And then, of course, the suite of creature removal that I always like to go with. It varies per deck depending on what I feel is better for it. But, some Terrors, obviously. Some Vanquish the Weaks. That's for early game because technically in this deck you're trying to win by third turn at all times. So the cheaper the removal, usually cheaper creatures have cheaper power. So I went with Vanquish the Weaks for this one. Asphyxiate to make sure that if they do leave up blockers, you can try to get them out of the way. And Murder, it's just all around a good creature removal. Spread the Sickness was a little tech that I threw in here. If the game's going long for some reason, Spread the Sickness not only destroys a creature but proliferates. Basically meaning if they already have a -1/-1 counter on them, and if anything has a counter on them, you add another one to them. So a little bit of tech for the deck. The rares, Putrefacts. Think Ball Lightning, but with Infect. A little bit more expensive than Ball Lightning, but still, it's Ball Lightning with Infect. 5 to cast, 5/3 Trample Haste Infect, and sacrifice them. This is like, in case you're really close, you draw them, you're in late game and they have like 6 counters or 7 counters on them. You're going to surprise your opponent with a 5/3 Hasting Trampler. Hopefully you get through and it gets the job done. Hand of the Predators. Infect, as all the rest of the cards, it also gives all your other creatures +1/+1 that have Infect. So making your Infect creatures bigger is always a good thing. But whenever you cast a creature spell, target player gets a poison counter. This one was more along the lines of, if your game goes too long, you don't get the 3rd turn kill. They start building up a board presence, but they don't want to attack in because they're afraid of the Infect creatures. This is drop it down, start casting all the other Infect creatures, and you might kill your opponent just for casting them. So it's a little tech. Bounty of the Might. Kind of one of those things where not a whole lot of like creature buff stuff in the rare slot for anything. I saw this and I was like, well, if you're going late and you really need to get that extra damage in, you've got some tramplers. Can't imagine not giving one creature +9/+9 or 3 different creatures a giant growth. It's going to be kind of effective, especially in Infect, because they deal damage at -1/-1 counters. So effectively, that damage stays on the board forever, unless it kills the creature. So a little bit of a buff to all your stuff. And then, of course, my in Garrick's Wake, if it's a long game, wipe your opponent's side of the board, and then swing in for the win. So that's that. That's the deck part of it. Now for the lands, it's a multicolor deck. It's 2 colors, so we're gonna go with the normal suite of Evolving Wilds and Foul Orchards. Usually I go with Gates, but at the time I was building this, I was running low on Gates, and I found that I had a place at a Foul Orchards. It's just any dual land that I can get my hands on will go in there. That's why when I open up the packs from the decks, or from the booster boxes, I always put those aside, because every deck that's dual color needs to have a good dual land. At least playable anyway. Alright, so that is Black Green Infect. Any questions or any comments, please put them below. Don't forget to like the video, share the video out, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And thank you and have a good day.